The Deep Space Monitoring Station on Europa wasn't known for excitement. Most days, the staff watched endless streams of data scroll across their screens, tracking the usual movement of asteroids and space debris. But today was different. Tom Miller had been staring at his sensor readings for nearly 10 minutes, double and triple checking the numbers. The energy signature he detected made no sense. It was massive, unlike anything humanity had ever recorded. "Control, this is Station 7, he called out, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "I'm picking up something unusual in Sector 84B. You might want to take a look at this." Within hours, the Earth Defense Fleet's fastest ship, the EDF Horizon, was breaking orbit around Jupiter. Captain James Walker stood on the bridge, his experienced eyes studying the preliminary reports. 20 years of space service had taught him to trust his instincts, and right now, they were telling him this was big. "Status report," he called out to his crew. "All systems nominal, Captain," replied his first officer. "We're approaching the coordinates. Whatever's out there, we'll reach it in about 40 minutes." Walker nodded, his weathered face reflecting the soft blue glow of the ship's displays. The Horizon was humanity's pride. Fast, well-armed, and equipped with the latest sensor technology. If something was hiding in the outer solar system, they would find it. As they drew closer, the ship's more powerful sensors began painting a clearer picture. The energy signature wasn't just one source. It was hundreds, maybe thousands of individual readings, all clustered together in a region of space that seemed to bend and twist in impossible ways. "Captain," called out the sensor officer, her voice tense, "I'm detecting artificial structures. Lots of them. They're ships, sir, but nothing like ours." Walker leaned forward in his chair, on screen. The main display lit up with an image that made everyone on the bridge catch their breath. Against the black of space hung a vast fleet of vessels, their designs both beautiful and alien. They were caught in what looked like a ripple in space itself, a distortion that bent light around it in strange patterns. "Open all frequencies," Walker ordered. "Let's see if anyone's home." For several tense minutes, they broadcasted standard greeting messages in every format they knew. The response, when it came, wasn't in words, at least not at first. Instead, their screens filled with mathematical sequences, prime numbers, the value of pi, basic universal constants. "They're proving they're intelligent," Walker said, a smile crossing his face. "Send the same sequences back, then add our own." The exchange continued, growing more complex until finally, after hours of work, the ship's computers managed to establish a rough translation matrix. The first clear message they received sent chills down everyone's spine. "Help us. We are trapped. Our children are dying." Walker didn't hesitate. "Send back. We are from Earth. We want to help. Tell us what you need." The response came faster this time, more desperate. "We are the stellar wanderers. Our home star began to die. We fled, but our escape went wrong. The space-time distortion trapped us. 3 years by your measure. Our drives cannot function here. Many ships are failing. Please help." Walker looked around his bridge. He saw the determination in his crew's eyes, the same determination that had driven humanity to the stars. These aliens might have more advanced technology, but right now, they needed help. And helping those in need was what humans did best. "Send to Earth Command," he ordered. "First contact established with alien civilization. Humanitarian crisis in progress. Requesting immediate dispatch of rescue fleet and support vessels." He paused, then added, "Tell them to bring everyone. We're going to need all hands for this one." As the message was sent, Walker watched the alien fleet on his screen. Some of the ships were dark, their power systems clearly failing. Others showed signs of damage from their long imprisonment. But they had found help at last. They had found humanity. "Send to the Wanderers," he commanded. "Help is coming. You're not alone anymore. Earth stands with you." The response was simple but filled with emotion their translation matrix couldn't quite capture. "The stars themselves must have guided us to you." Walker smiled. Humanity's greatest challenge, and perhaps its finest hour, was about to begin. 3 days after first contact, the space around the trapped alien fleet buzzed with human activity. Earth had responded to Captain Walker's call with everything they could spare. Research vessels, medical ships, and engineering platforms surrounded the anomaly, their crews working around the clock to understand the crisis. Emma Ross stood in her lab aboard the science vessel Galileo, her eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the latest sensor data. As Earth's leading expert in quantum drive systems, she had been rushed to the site immediately. What she saw both amazed and worried her. "It's like nothing we've ever seen," she explained to the gathered team of scientists and military officials. "Their quantum drives are centuries ahead of ours, but that's exactly the problem. They're too advanced for our region of space." The Wanderer's ambassador, a tall being with silvery skin who had taken the simple name Blue for easier communication, nodded slowly. "Our drives were designed for the complex space near our dying sun. We didn't know normal space would reject them so violently." Walker, who had been quietly listening from the corner, stepped forward. "Explain it to me in simple terms, Ross. Can we get them out?" Emma ran her hand through her short gray hair, a habit when she was thinking hard. "Their ships are like fish built for the deep ocean suddenly trying to swim in shallow water. Everything about them is wrong for this environment." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. On the main screen, they could see the alien fleet, over 3,000 ships of various sizes, all trapped in the spatial distortion their own drives had created while trying to escape their dying star system. "We lost another ship last night," Blue said quietly. 26 families. Our life support systems were never meant to last this long." There was a tremor in the ambassador's normally musical voice. "We've lost 30% of our people since becoming trapped. Each day, we lose more." Walker's fists clenched. He had spent the last 3 days talking with the Wanderers, learning their story. They were peaceful explorers and scholars who had faced an impossible choice when their sun began its premature death. Their entire civilization, millions of people, had boarded these ships, hoping to find a new home. "What about towing them out?" someone suggested. Emma shook her head. "The anomaly acts like quicksand. The more energy we put in, the stronger it gets. We tried a test pull yesterday with a small probe. The distortion absorbed the energy and grew by 0.3%. If we can't pull them out," Walker said, "then we need to think differently. What if we could modify their drives to work in our space?" Emma's eyes lit up. "That might be possible, but we'd need to understand their technology better, and we'd need their help." She turned to Blue. "Would your engineers be willing to work with us? Share knowledge?" The ambassador's silver skin seemed to shimmer. "We would share everything we know. But you must understand. What you're suggesting would mean touching our most sacred technology. Our quantum drives are the heart of our civilization." Walker stepped forward. "Ambassador, I give you my word. We will treat your technology with the respect it deserves. But right now, that technology is killing your people. Let us help." Blue was quiet for a long moment, looking around the room at the humans who had dropped everything to come help a species they'd never met before. Finally, the ambassador nodded. "Our engineers will cooperate fully. You have already shown us more kindness than we could have hoped for among the stars." Emma immediately began organizing teams. "We'll need to work fast. Every day we take is measured in lives." As the meeting broke up, Walker caught Emma's arm. "How long?" he asked quietly. She met his eyes. "If everything goes perfectly, 2 weeks to understand their drives, another week to design modifications. After that," she shrugged. "We're in unknown territory, Captain. No one has ever tried anything like this." Walker nodded. "Then we'll just have to do the impossible. It wouldn't be the first time humanity has done that." Outside the Galileo's windows, Earth ships continued to arrive, bringing more help, more resources, more hope. The greatest engineering challenge in human history had begun, and failure wasn't an option. 3 million lives were counting on them. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of activity. The space around the trapped Wanderer fleet had become a busy construction site, with human ships coming and going constantly. Earth had devoted nearly every space-worthy vessel to the rescue mission, creating the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. Emma Ross hadn't slept properly in days. She stood in the main engineering lab of the Galileo, surrounded by both human and alien engineers. Holographic displays showed complex equations floating in the air, while actual pieces of a Wanderer quantum drive lay carefully dismantled on the workbench before her. "The problem isn't just the drive," she explained to Captain Walker, who had come to check on their progress. "It's like trying to mix oil and water. Their technology wants to operate in a different kind of space than what we have here." Walker watched as an alien engineer, Ray, used his 4-fingered hands to adjust part of the drive. The aliens had been true to their word, sharing their most sacred technology freely with the humans who were trying to save them. "We lost another ship yesterday," Walker said quietly. "Life support failed completely. We managed to evacuate most of them to other vessels, but—" Emma nodded grimly. They all knew the stakes. Every day meant more lives lost. But rushing their work could mean an even bigger disaster. Suddenly, Ray made a surprised sound. He was looking at an old-style fusion reactor diagram that one of the human engineers had left on a screen. "This is primitive," Ray said, but his tone wasn't dismissive. "Yet, there's something about its simplicity." His silver eyes widened. "Emma, could we use this?" Emma hurried over, her tired brain taking a moment to understand what Ray was suggesting. Then her face lit up with excitement. "Captain," she turned to Walker, "we've been thinking about this all wrong. We've been trying to make their advanced technology work in our space. But what if we did the opposite? What if we used our simple technology to help their advanced drives adapt?" Walker raised an eyebrow. "Can you explain that in plain English?" Emma grabbed a tablet and quickly drew something. "Their drives are too complex for our space, but what if we used our basic fusion technology as a kind of translator? Like putting training wheels on a bicycle." The next few days were a frenzy of activity. Human and alien engineers worked side by side, combining their technologies in ways neither species had imagined before. They built a prototype, a hybrid drive that used human fusion technology to create a stable bubble around the more advanced alien quantum systems. The test day came too soon, and not soon enough. They had modified a small alien shuttle for the first attempt. If it worked, they could scale up the solution for the larger ships. Everyone watched from their respective ships as the shuttle moved to the edge of the anomaly. Emma's voice shook slightly as she gave the command, "Activate hybrid drive system." The shuttle's engines lit up with a beautiful combination of human and alien technology. For a moment, everything seemed fine. Then warnings started blaring. "Power spike," someone shouted. "The fusion containment is—" The shuttle exploded in a brief, brilliant flash of light. The anomaly rippled, growing slightly larger. Silence filled the command center. Emma felt tears in her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I thought—" But Ray was already moving, his silver fingers flying over the controls. No, this is good," he said excitedly. "Look at the data. The drive was working. We just need to adjust the containment field." Walker put a hand on Emma's shoulder. "How long to make those adjustments?" Emma wiped her eyes, already focusing on the new data. 3 days. Maybe 2 if we work round the clock." "You have whatever you need," Walker said firmly. "Every resource, every person." As they bent back to their work, Emma realized something had changed. The human and alien engineers were no longer working as separate teams. They had become one group, each contributing their unique perspectives and knowledge. They had failed today, but that failure had taught them more than any success could have. Ray worked beside her, his silver skin reflecting the light of the displays. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "in all our advancement, we never thought to look backward for solutions. Perhaps that is why the universe guided us to Earth." Emma managed to smile. "Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. We'll find the right balance." Outside, the anomaly continued its slow pulse, but now it seemed less like a prison and more like a puzzle waiting to be solved. They had lost this round, but humanity didn't give up easily. The next attempt would be better. They would find a way. They had to. Time was running out. A month had passed since first contact, and the situation was getting worse by the hour. The room aboard the Galileo was tense as Captain Walker faced angry voices from both humans and aliens. "We can't keep this up," said Commander Peters of the supply fleet. "We're burning through resources faster than Earth can send them. Half our ships are running on emergency reserves." The Wanderers' Council member Gray, his silver skin dulled with stress, spoke next. "3 more ships lost power last night. We crammed the survivors into other vessels, but our life support systems are failing faster now." He paused, his voice heavy. "Some of our people are talking about taking matters into their own hands." Walker felt the weight of command pressing down on him. They'd been working nonstop since the failed test of the hybrid drive, but each new attempt had ended in failure. Not as spectacularly as the first, but still failures. Emma Ross burst into the room, her eyes wild with lack of sleep. "The anomaly is growing," she announced without preamble. "Our attempts to break through have been making it stronger. At this rate, it'll start pulling in our ships too." The room erupted in panic. Through the viewport, they could see the massive fleet of trapped alien ships, their once beautiful hulls now dark and deteriorating. Around them, the space-time distortion rippled with strange colors, growing larger by the minute. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. Multiple ships powering up in the alien fleet, someone shouted over the comm. Walker rushed to the main screen. A group of 20 Wanderer ships had activated their quantum drives. "What are they doing?" he demanded. Gray's face showed horror. "The Lost Hope faction. They believe it's better to die trying to escape than to wait for death in the anomaly. They'll tear the fleet apart," Emma shouted. "Their drives will interact with the anomaly and—" Walker was already moving. "All ships, battle stations, prepare for emergency maneuvers. Ross, you're with me." They raced to the horizon, Walker's own ship. As they reached the bridge, they could see the desperate Wanderer ships beginning to move, their drives creating dangerous ripples in the already unstable space around them. "Their actions will create a cascade effect," Emma explained quickly, her fingers flying over a console. "The anomaly will collapse inward, then explode outward. It'll destroy everything here." Walker opened a channel to the fleeing ships. "This is Captain Walker. Stop your engines immediately. You're putting everyone at risk." "Better to die free than waste away in this prison," came the response. Walker looked at Emma. "Options." She stared at her readings, then suddenly straightened. "Their drives. The energy signature, Captain. We've been so stupid." "Explain." "We've been trying to fix their drives, make them work in our space. But look at what happens when they activate them here. They create a bubble of their kind of space. A bubble that collapses, but still." Walker caught on. "You're saying we could use their drives to generate a safe zone, even temporarily?" "Yes. If we can position ships with our fusion reactors at key points, we could stabilize that bubble, create a safe corridor." Her eyes were bright with excitement. "It would only last a few minutes, but it might be enough." Walker finished. He turned to his crew. "All hands, prepare for close quarters maneuvering. We're going to thread a needle." The horizon moved forward, positioning itself between the desperate Wanderer ships and the rest of their fleet. Other human ships followed, forming a precise pattern based on Emma's rapid calculations. As the rogue ships powered up for their suicide run, Walker opened a channel to all vessels. "To the Lost Hope ships, we hear you. We understand your desperation, but in the next few minutes, you'll see why you were right to find Earth. We don't give up. We don't leave people behind. And we're about to prove it." He looked at Emma. "Ready?" She nodded, her face set with determination. "Ready. Though if I'm wrong about this, we'll be the first to know." Walker managed a grim smile. "Sometimes that's what it takes. All ships. Execute pattern Walker 1 on my mark. Execute pattern Walker 1. Now." On Captain Walker's command, 12 human ships fired their fusion engines at full power. The horizon led them in a precise formation, creating a web of energy around the desperate wanderer vessels. Emma Ross held her breath as she watched the energy readings spike on her display. "Their quantum drives are activating," she reported, her voice tense. "The anomaly is responding, just like we predicted." Space itself seemed to twist between the human ships. The energy from their fusion drives interacted with the wanderer ship's quantum fields, creating a strange bubble of stabilized spacetime. Inside this bubble, the laws of physics matched those the wanderer ships were designed for. "It's working," Emma shouted. "The corridor is forming." But their success was short-lived. Warning alarms blared across the bridge as the bubble began to fluctuate wildly. "We're losing containment," a technician called out. "The fusion reactors can't maintain this power level." Walker gripped his command chair. "How long until total failure?" 3 minutes, maybe 4, Emma answered, her fingers dancing across her console. "The bubble will collapse, and when it does..." She didn't need to finish. They all knew the consequences would be catastrophic. That's when Ray's voice came over the comm. The alien engineer had been watching from the Galileo. "The physics are perfect," he said excitedly. "But you need more power. More ships." Walker looked at his tactical display. They had already committed every ship they could spare to maintaining the bubble. Every other vessel was busy keeping the main fleet stable. Then a new voice crackled over the comm. "This is mining vessel Deep Rock. We're coming in." Through the viewport, Walker saw an old mining ship moving into position. It was followed by 2 more, then a handful of cargo haulers, and even a few private vessels. Ships that weren't meant for this kind of operation, but whose captains had heard the call and responded. "Their fusion drives aren't calibrated for this," Emma protested. "The interference patterns will be chaotic." "Then we'll handle the chaos," Walker responded. He opened a channel to the civilian ships. "All volunteer vessels, form up on my mark. Follow our power curve exactly. Emma, make it work." Emma's hands flew over her console, rapidly recalculating the power distribution to account for the mismatched engines. Ray joined her calculations from the Galileo, combining human intuition with alien precision. 30 seconds to bubble collapse, the technician announced. "All ships," Walker commanded, "emergency power to fusion drives. Now." The space around them lit up as dozens of fusion drives fired at maximum power. The civilian ship's unmatched frequencies created wild fluctuations in the energy field, but somehow, the disorder worked in their favor. The bubble stabilized, stronger than before. "It's like jazz," Emma exclaimed, watching the energy patterns. "The imperfect harmonies are actually strengthening the field." The desperate wanderer ships, which had been caught in the initial bubble, found themselves in a pocket of space their drives could actually work in. Their engines hummed to life properly for the first time in years. "Guide them out," Walker ordered. "Maintain the corridor." One by one, the Lost Hope ships moved through the stabilized corridor, their quantum drives functioning perfectly in the temporary bubble of familiar spacetime. The last ship cleared the anomaly just as the human vessel's fusion drives began to redline. "All ships, power down," Walker commanded. The bubble collapsed harmlessly behind them, leaving 20 wanderer ships floating free in normal space. The bridge of the horizon erupted in cheers. They had done it. Not just the military ships, not just the scientists, but ordinary human ships working together had achieved what seemed impossible. The leader of the Lost Hope faction's voice came over the comm, heavy with emotion. "We were wrong," he said simply. "We thought we had to save ourselves. We didn't understand that sometimes survival means trusting others." Emma smiled tiredly at her console, where Ray's calculations still glowed. "It's not about having the most advanced technology," she said. "It's about being willing to try the impossible and having the heart to help others." Walker looked out at the ragtag fleet of human vessels. Military ships, mining vessels, cargo haulers, all of them working together. "That's humanity's real strength," he said quietly. "Not what we know, but what we're willing to learn. Not what we have, but what we're willing to give." They had saved 20 ships. Now they had to figure out how to save the rest of the fleet. But they had proven it could be done. And more importantly, they had proven that humans and wanderers, working together, could overcome anything. The successful rescue of the Lost Hope ships changed everything. Over the next 3 days, the combined human and wanderer engineering teams worked nonstop to refine their discovery. The main hangar of the Galileo had become their command center, filled with holographic displays and hastily assembled equipment. "The principle is solid," Emma explained to the gathered fleet commanders. "We can create stable corridors using our fusion drives to shape safe zones for their quantum engines. The problem is scale." Ray, now permanently stationed at her side, pointed to a diagram. "We need to evacuate over 2,000 ships. The corridor we created for 20 nearly burned out our drives." Captain Walker studied the display showing the trapped fleet. The anomaly had grown larger after their last attempt, making their work even more dangerous. But now they had hope and a plan. "We do it in stages," Walker said. "Small groups, multiple corridors, like a giant traffic system." Emma nodded excitedly. "Exactly. Look here." She brought up a new diagram. "We position fusion-powered ships in a spiral pattern. Each group maintains a small corridor. As ships pass through, the pattern rotates, creating a continuous escape route." The next few hours were a blur of preparation. Every ship in the human fleet was fitted with emergency power systems to help their fusion drives handle the strain. The Wanderers modified their quantum drives to better sync with the human-made corridors. Walker stood on the bridge of the horizon, watching the ships move into position. "All vessels, report readiness." One by one, the ships called in. From massive military vessels to small civilian crafts, everyone had a role to play. The rescued Lost Hope ships had joined them, their quantum drives now modified to help stabilize the corridors from the outside. "Begin Phase 1, Walker commanded. The first corridor flickered to life, a shimmering tunnel of stabilized space-time cutting through the anomaly. The first group of wanderer ships began their careful journey through. "Power levels holding," Emma reported from her station. "First group is halfway through." Suddenly, alarms blared. "Anomaly surge," someone shouted. "The corridor is destabilizing." Walker watched as the tunnel of safe space began to waver. Without hesitation, he ordered, "Backup Group A, engage drives. Maintain that corridor." 3 more human ships burned hard, adding their fusion drive power to the matrix. The corridor stabilized just as the first group of wanderer ships emerged safely into normal space. "Rotate pattern," Walker commanded. "Begin Phase 2. Like a well-rehearsed dance, the human ships shifted positions. A new corridor formed as the first one closed, ready for the next group of refugees. Hour after hour, the rescue continued. Engineers worked frantically to keep the overtaxed fusion drives running. Crew members pushed themselves to their limits, knowing that every minute counted. "Sir," Emma called out, her voice urgent. "The anomaly. It's beginning to collapse in on itself." Walker watched as the spatial distortion began to shrink, its edges becoming more violent. "How many ships still inside?" 312, Ray answered immediately. "But at this rate," Walker made a quick decision. "All ships, maximum power. We're getting everyone out now." The human fleet responded instantly. Every fusion drive blazed at full power, creating the largest safe zone they'd attempted yet. The remaining Wanderer ships began moving as fast as they dared. Drive failures reported on multiple vessels, Emma announced tensely. We can't maintain this for long. We don't need long, Walker replied, watching the stream of ships emerging from the anomaly. Just long enough. The minutes stretched like hours as ship after ship made it to safety. The anomaly continued to shrink, its edges now crackling with dangerous energy. Last group approaching the corridor, Ray reported. Walker leaned forward in his chair. Hold position. Keep those drives running. Through the viewport, he could see the fusion drives of nearby ships glowing white-hot with strain. Warning lights flashed on every console as systems were pushed far beyond their limits, but no one powered down. No one gave up. Last ship clearing the corridor now. Ray's voice rang out across the horizon's bridge. The final Wanderer vessel emerged from the anomaly just as the human ship's fusion drives began to fail. All ships, power down, Walker ordered. Emergency withdrawal. The fleet of human vessels pulled back as the spatial distortion collapsed in on itself. The anomaly that had trapped the Wanderer fleet for so long vanished in a flash of light, leaving behind only empty space and the largest gathering of ships humanity had ever seen. Emma slumped in her chair, exhausted but smiling. Final count? She asked. Ray checked his displays. 2,843 ships saved. We did it. We actually did it. The comm channels erupted with cheers from both human and Wanderer crews. 3 weeks of non-stop work, countless near disasters, and more than a few miracles had led to this moment. An entire civilization had been saved. 2 days later, Walker stood in the grand meeting hall of the Earth Defense Fleet headquarters in Geneva. The room was packed with representatives from both species. The Wanderer's Ambassador Blue stood at the podium, silver skin gleaming under the lights. In our long history, Blue began, we have visited thousands of worlds and met dozens of species. We prided ourselves on our advanced technology and knowledge. But none of that saved us when disaster struck. The ambassador paused, looking around the room. It was humanity. A species we had never met, one we might have once considered primitive, that showed us the true meaning of advancement. Walker sat next to Emma in the audience, both now wearing formal uniforms decorated with new medals. Ray sat on Emma's other side, wearing traditional Wanderer robes marked with human military honors. Your people didn't just save our ships, Blue continued. You showed us that true civilization isn't measured by the power of its engines or the age of its technology. It's measured by the size of its heart and the strength of its determination. The ambassador raised a hand, and a hologram appeared above the podium. It showed a new design, a ship that clearly combined both human and Wanderer technology. This is the first of our new vessels, Blue announced, built with both human fusion drives and our quantum technology. But more importantly, it represents something greater, a formal alliance between our peoples. Earth will be marked in our star charts, not just as our saviors, but as humanity's first step into the galactic community. The room erupted in applause. Walker leaned over to Emma and whispered, not bad for a bunch of primitive fusion drives. Ha! Emma grinned. Just think. A month ago, we were excited about detecting an unusual energy signature. Now we're helping build ships that can cross galaxies. Ray joined their conversation. Thanks to you, my people have learned to look backward as well as forward. Sometimes the old ways combined with new thinking create the best solutions. After the ceremony, Walker found himself standing at one of the huge windows overlooking Earth. The Wanderer fleet hung in orbit above the planet, their silver hulls now repaired and shining. Soon, they would depart to establish their new home in a system not far from Earth. But they would not go alone. Human engineers and scientists would travel with them, while Wanderer teachers and researchers would remain on Earth. Quite a view, isn't it? Emma said, joining him at the window. She held up a data pad showing their latest project, plans for a joint human Wanderer space station. Walker nodded. You know what the best part is? This is just the beginning. We've proved something important, that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our resources. It's our heart, Emma finished. Our willingness to help strangers, to try the impossible, to never give up. Above them, a new ship lifted off from the space dock, the first of the joint fleet, its hull bearing both human and wanderer markings. As it passed the window, its fusion drives pulsed in perfect harmony with its quantum core, lighting up the sky with the promise of a future neither species could have imagined alone. We found each other among the stars, Ray said, joining them at the window. And together, we will find wonders beyond imagination. Walker smiled. Humanity had taken its first real step into the galaxy, and they had done it not through conquest or competition, but by extending a helping hand to those in need. It was, he thought, exactly the right way to begin.